Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Ghosts and Spirits Encounters video. Once again, I'm mixing one of these in here from the reddit.com website. They're from one that I haven't done in a while, the one involving shadow people. Yes, it's been probably a month or two or more since I last talked about this strange phenomenon, but there's still some fans here on this channel when it comes to that particular topic, so I thought I would share another one of these in here and then give my own thoughts and opinions on it afterward. What makes this one unique is that not only does it involve one shadow person, but it's two of them, both of them within the same home. So how about that? Double the shadow people. But it comes from a user by the name of Medium Drink 6111, and they titled theirs as Two Separate Shadow People I Saw in My Childhood Home. So let's go ahead and let's give this experience here. I'll give my thoughts again towards the end. Let me know what you guys and gals think. I do have people that still post comments to this day about their specific shadow person encounters, so definitely another opportunity for everyone to do so here. So here's what the user states. I apologize, this is a very long story, but worth a read. I remember I used to see shadow people in my childhood home, always at a time when I woke up in the middle of the night. I was quite young at the time. This was happening probably between the ages of 8 to 12 years old. Now, I would see a very tall man in my bedroom doorway. My doorway went into a hallway which had a skylight, so the moonlight was always bright enough to tell that this was in fact a shadow person. He would never move, just staring. Eventually, he would just disappear out of thin air. A couple of times I had asked to sleep in my parents' bed in the middle of the night because I was so scared. Almost every time I had done this, it would follow, and I would start seeing him in my parents' doorway as well. If I tried to wake my parents next to me to tell them what I was seeing in their doorway, they would simply not look and just say I was seeing things and then go back to sleep. I'd probably seen this man at least a dozen times over the course of those years. But the scariest encounter I ever had occurred when I was 12 years old and was slightly different. This time, it was what seemed like an old woman. I remember when I first saw her, she was staring out my bedroom window. After a few seconds of looking at her, I could very clearly see she turned towards me, walked towards me, and then bent down to my level face to face. For some reason, my response was to move my hand back and forth where her head should have been, but I felt nothing. She did not like this, it seemed. Next thing I know, I both heard and felt her breathing very heavy in my face. I immediately jumped out of bed and turned my light on, and the shadow was now gone. I was actually terrified to turn it back off, so I had slept that night with the light on. The weird thing about all of this was that this was the last encounter I've ever had. I've never seen the tall man or the old woman ever since. I'm now 28 years old. My father still lives in that house, and I always felt a bit uneasy if I ever sleep there. Nobody ever believed me, not until the past 2 years or so, about 15 years later. One day, a friend of my dad's had dropped by the house and swore he had seen a shadow person phase through the front door of the house in broad daylight. The friend had come in the house for just a few seconds later, and my dad was the only one home and was all the way upstairs. There was no way it could have been my dad that he had seen. After this, they had briefly recalled me mentioning things like this when I was younger and had asked me to retell this story to them. My dad's friend looked pale in the face as I told it. I'm glad that someone else has now seen it and they now believe me. Still gives me the creeps, even though I've had no encounters for 16 years now. Then that's it. That's everything that the user Medium Drink 6111 mentioned. So let's talk about that here. Creepy encounter, right? First off, you had the nicer, if you could call it that, shadow person. Apparently, it was just a tall man, and this person, the shadow person, would just stare from the doorway. But it was intelligent enough to follow this user whenever the user went over to the parents' bedroom. And then once again, it was just there peering into the doorway. I think one of the successes that shadow people have is that so few people believe in them. Like in this case, the user's parents, they were being told what was happening by the user, but obviously they just said that they're just seeing things, go back to sleep, and so they never looked. And so that pretty much created havoc for that user because the shadow person had all night to basically do what they wanted and nobody would be the wiser. They're counting on that, in other words, of people not believing in them for that. But talk about the next experience. First, it seems like a shadow person that's an old woman. Can you imagine something like that? I think that's a first. I don't recall mentioning anything like that before. But there it was, apparently staring out into the bedroom window. Like, in other words, it was inside that bedroom and it was looking outwards. And then it must have noticed that the user was staring at them, and then cut to a couple of moments later. And now it was right there, right in front of the user's face, literally face to face. Wow, that was giving me the heebie-jeebies when I first read that. So imagine that. And then, of course, the user decided to deflect things, and they did not like that. They moved their hand into the area that this shadow person, old woman, was, and obviously felt nothing. I've read, though, in the past, and I've cited it here, that moving your body or moving any parts of your body into an actual shadow person, you're supposed to feel very, very cold. But they didn't in their case. Who knows if they did or didn't, but they didn't mention it at least. And now all of a sudden, this old woman shadow person was now breathing very heavily into their face, almost angry with regards to that. And then all it took was the user turning on the light. Then that was it. It was gone. Not only that, but apparently the other tall man shadow person was gone as well. How about that? All it took was a brief reaction, in this case, of almost fighting back inadvertently, and those shadow people didn't come back. But they did have a sequel. They apparently came back, and one of them made their presence known to their father's friend. So how creepy is that? Imagine being stuck in a home like that. You got a mortgage, you got payments to make, you can't just really drop things at the top of a hat. And yet there they are. They're there with you, and you can't do much about it. And then you feel guilty afterward if, let's say, you do sell it to get the hell out of there, and then you're going to leave it to someone else. There's someone else that's going to be plagued by them. So it's so much of a lose-lose situation. But at least with this user, apparently they moved out. They're 28 years old. They haven't seen anything like that, but they still heard about what happened to their dad's friend. But let me know what you guys and gals think. Creepy encounter. Is that a first as well for you when it comes to an old woman shadow person? Post it in the comments below. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.